Hello and welcome into SorareData Office Hours. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined as always by my boss, Maxime Hagenbourger, maximehg on Sorare. And today, Dan from Sorare. Dan, it keeps throwing me off because I keep mixing up whether you're Dan Sorare or Sorare Dan. And then I just start calling you Dan from Sorare, and it just doesn't seem very apropos of the reason you're here. But hello, thank you for joining us.
I think it's Dan Sorare on Twitter, or Dan S-O apostrophe rare for the Irish touch. But it was also Dan from the board for a while.
Yeah, exactly. That was very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's when we were trying to make it sound like a bit more football managery. But then it ended up sounding like I was on the Sorare board of investors. Pretty far from the truth. I wish.
a bit football managery is a nice hint of what we'll talk to at some point during this conversation. But thanks so much for coming on. Everyone is really excited that you're here for a whole number of reasons. But obviously the point of the show today is to talk about the football product roadmap that came out last week, or the update, excuse me. And there was a lot in there. And thanks for using this show to hopefully answer some questions that some people have. Before we get into like the actual specifics of it, was like the feedback that you saw any different than like kind of what you normally see on these updates?
I don't think it was the feedback that I saw was kind of the feedback that we were expecting, which is usually a good sign. It means we're not out of touch. So I don't think it was any different. I think I saw a tweet saying that, seeing the amount of engagement that these type of product roadmap updates get, even if they're, maybe a 50-50 split or there's a difference of opinions is usually really promising because it means that people care about the product. But I didn't see any feedback that made me go, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and same with the team, which is a good sign. It means we're not completely out of touch. But I'm still, I've been out of office for the last 4 days, so I still have a bit of catching up to do to like dig into some of the stuff on Discord. I've done Twitter, but I haven't really read all the stuff up on Discord yet. So I do have some catching up to do.
I imagine that will take 3 or 4 years to actually catch up on all the Discord messages, but we'll get that.
Yeah.
So there were a few things that I at least wanted to start with, and thankfully I'm the one who runs the show. So at least on these specific shows, now that I'm looking at my boss laughing at me. But anyway, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me, and I've talked to a few people about it, is that it seems like the new updates kind of the fitness part is the one that everybody jumped out at first. And it felt like the game itself, or we're basically gamifying it a little more than keeping it to like a true fantasy football game. And for anyone curious, there were a couple questions about NBA and MLB. We're going to stick to football here because that's what the update was about. But is kind of the idea that we're going to be moving more towards kind of a gamified version of fantasy football, or are we going to, or not, basically?
So firstly, we'll always stay true, or as true as possible, to the core fantasy loop that Sorare is built around, because that's brought us large amounts of success that we've seen today. And I think we know that it's super engaging. But the larger vision of Sorare was always to kind of merge that cross-section of football manager or top 11 or even ultimate team type games with the core fantasy loop that we've built. And I think since launching anyway, beyond our fantasy core loop, we always had this concept of ownership with the cards that other fantasy products don't have. And that concept of ownership is more naturally and easily developed through gamification concepts that live on other platforms that you don't really see on fantasy products. stuff like building your club identity, areas in which you can kind of get imaginative and customize your clubs or build your stadiums in certain ways, and being rewarded for engagement or being challenged to be engaged so that you can unlock other things that add to your gaming experience. So I think I saw that tweet as well. It wasn't that this decision was just made this summer. It's more that the timing is right to do it now. But this is something that we have wanted to do, since I joined, like almost 3 years ago. Like it's just a case that we've had so much going on that it's been hard to, it wasn't a priority, but now we feel that the moment's right to start venturing into features like this.
Maxime, feel free to jump in, but I'm just going to keep peppering questions. So the way that a lot of people are looking at fitness is really the biggest thing. I feel like of the entire update, everyone was like, yeah, there's this, and then there's this fitness. Mm-hmm. Are there any details you can tell us about it?
So I can't share any of the details on how fitness will operate specifically, like in terms of the numbers, how much it depreciates, how much it increases from game week to game week, and how it works with facilities or club shop items. That'll be shared in our next roadmap update in the next couple of weeks. We'll do it as soon as possible, really. Initially, we'd hope to kind of announce everything together, knowing that we always try to give at least a 2 to 3 months lead-in period. But in this case, we're still digging quite deep into the data of what would be best for the game. And we're also using this opportunity to just see some of the feedback from community and what their own ideas are about it, because I think that's important too. So I don't have anything that people can chew on right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. On that,
am I getting emojis? I can't see the chat.
Yeah, but on that, then, is it like, can you explain to us, like, what's the reasoning? Is it like, do you announce such a big impact on the game without giving so much details about it because you want to get feedback out of it? Or what's the reasoning behind like announcing? Like, to me, it's something that we could have like I'd say, like, imagine coming at some point in a game, but like you kind of saying now it's going to happen, but we are not disclosing all the details about it. What's the reasoning behind it?
Well, the reasons for not disclosing all the details immediately is because we're still like weighing up the best way in which we can implement and launch it. So it's not a case of like wanting to hide stuff. It's more that we would be announcing numbers that we're still weighing up what the best solution is. So like we're not 100% confident of which solution to go down. And then in terms of when the timing and when we want to announce these things, Sorare is, we're kind of this transition now where we're shifting, new season card launches and big key product updates towards the start of the European season. So a bit like how FIFA do it, we want to kind of be around that month of September after a couple of weeks leading into the season where we're relaunching cards and hoping for, organic user growth through these launches, and they will come and see a product that won't change, in 2 to 3 months' time. So part of our need to announce this now is also because we're constrained to the football calendar. If we had more flexibility and could, piece things kind of a little more, divide them a little more and give more of a lead-in time, we would. But it's just, when we weighed up all the pros and cons, it just didn't make sense, especially from just a general business perspective, to launch all these new season cards and then 3-4 months later, like, introduce new key features that change strategies. And also, in general, we're trying to make these commitments in one big block so that, we saw the feedback of the amount of kind of small chops and changes that we've had in the last, 6 months or so. It's, you're always, all our core users have to constantly be online and engaged and see what's changing. And that, we'd like for there to be a game experience where there's a consistency over an X period of months, you know, and there's not these kind of changes or updates that change strategies. I hope that answers that question.
I have two follow-ups to it, actually. The first is somebody pointed out, I apologize for, I don't remember if it was on Twitter or wherever it was, but basically that collection bonuses were introduced earlier this summer, late spring, whenever it was. But basically we haven't had a lot of the European cards in the game with these collection bonuses. And now we're introducing, well, not now, but at some point soon, the fitness bonuses will come in. Are there plans for like additional gamified bonuses in the game, or does this seem like it's it?
No, that's it. There's no plans for new bonuses. Like, you know, we've seen the feedback. I think it's like, you know, 4 key ones is enough.
I pretty much always look at it as 3 anyway, just because, I mean, I guess,
well,
I'm not heavily on the new season cards. I guess all
the I think, and the new season card concept is straightforward. If you were kind of digging into deeper strategies, then there's kind of really 3 to work with. But yeah, that's how I kind of I tried to explain it in the product roadmap, kind of breaking down the 4 and kind of a summary of how each one connects to different user types, or how there's crossovers in certain ones between how you might approach the game.
There was a question here in the chat that I'm actually pretty interested in, that basically are the gameplay changes meant to make the game more attractive to like a new set of users? Meaning, I know that the fitness thing is kind of a FIFA, you know, has its histories in FIFA, and whether doing something that was in other games is meant to kind of draw people who play those games to Sorare.
So like when we were looking to, you know, introduce features that worked well elsewhere, I think, you know, the game mode, the kind of quick game or kickoff game mode is something that's more immediate and maybe takes a little more inspiration from there. The reason for introducing fitness, you know, it's not going to necessarily be a difficult or new concept for anyone who's familiar with classic football games to learn, which is why when we were looking to introduce gamification concepts, we looked elsewhere to see, well, what are people familiar with and what are they used to? And also what fitness does is it does actually introduce and will help launch the wider club facilities concept. And we wanted the club facilities to have an impact on kind of on how you play the game and strategize around it. You know, we wanted it to be more than something cosmetic, something that brings you know, deeper levels of engagement. And that is also those are also features that are super successful in other games. You know, notably, like we looked a lot at Top 11 and how they have kind of a whole club building experience. Obviously, it's very different to what we'll be looking to offer, but it's something that has been successful for them.
There's a question in chat that a few people have asked about, and I think one of the things we have to remember is that Dan doesn't control everything, and so he might not be involved in everything, but Dan, you're the face, and so you get the questions. It's kind of like how I do nothing at SorareData, but everybody thanks me for the new features. It's perfect, except maybe the opposite sentiment. But anyway, what was the question was from Techers here. What was the rationale for making the fitness bonus 10%, but the collection bonus 5%?
Well, yeah, thanks for that intro, because I wouldn't know the exact, like, I have a general idea of why that decision was made, but in terms of how we've kind of split things between bonuses and their importance, I'm not sure of the exact reason for going for 10% and collection 5%. What I can guess at, but don't take this as gospel, is that 5% collection bonuses is something, the collection bonus in general is something for way more engaged users, because you have to work a lot harder to kind of get that 5% edge, and it takes a lot of time. And the fitness bonus is something that we see kind of as a entry to mid-level concept to understand. And I think if we overpowered the collection bonus relative to the fitness bonus, it would give those user types an edge. But don't take that for any sort of truth. I can see if someone's pinging me on the side. I hope a few people are listening. If I get a different answer from the guys who made the XP and bonus split, I'll let you know in the chat.
Great. So there are a few different ways we can go. I don't know if you want to go this way, but again, I have the my own question list here. But obviously the fitness boosts are kind of the first, as you guys described, kind of the new revenue stream with microtransaction like that. Mm-hmm. Are there any like plans to add additional ones kind of in the short term of what we can bring in to our clubs?
Not in the short term. The only discussions we've had on those form of transactions is for kind of cosmetics. So it's not like gameplay items, but it would be like if you want an exclusive banner or club logo or something like that. We're kind of venturing towards that, but that won't be for a while either. We haven't discussed those things at length.
And this is completely unrelated, but it's next on my own list here. But a few people have asked about like a potential burn feature. And I know that there's some who really want it. Maxime and I have debated it.
Do it.
Yeah, no, please don't. No, but what is the kind of the sentiment there about what a potential burn feature for cards?
Yeah, so I remember we were exploring it. I think a couple of months ago we mentioned that in I can't remember if it was the John Nellis podcast, and we were exploring how a feature like that could work. And in the end, we opted for the roadmap that we shared last week. So it's not something that we're digging into further for the time being, and we're 100% focused on what was announced last week.
Maxime, a few people in the chat say you look like you're ready to say something. So was it about a previous answer?
No. I mean, I listened to Dan carefully, and I give you the lead to the interview, but we'll debrief the interview just after Dan leaves. So if people want to get my opinion, just wait until the end. That's how you sell a stream, right? It's how you do it, right? It is. Okay.
We give out like you're scared. That's what you really think, Maxime.
No. But just to go ahead on that, like, I think I discussed this with Nicola, but it was in April. Obviously, the big milestone for Sorare was like the Global Cup. We've seen the Zidane video, which was very cool to watch. What's your, like, 6 months after the end of the competition and after everything has been done, like regarding prices, etc.? What's your overall feeling on the competition?
On the Global Cup?
Yeah.
Well, so I think I remember when the Gold Cup was running, and there was a lot of discussions on Twitter and Discord about the real value and impact of the signups that we were seeing, how many of them would stick around to explore the rest of the product. And, to be honest, not that many stuck around, but that wasn't the play for us. For us, it was a kind of a big brand awareness and growth test, like play. It was just to learn a lot more about what connects and doesn't resonate with potential target audiences. And in that regard, we learned a lot, and it helped us to kind of refocus a lot towards what we're building, towards this new European season. I think also something that isn't super, I don't think that many the community are aware about, is that the Global Cup did a lot to help build internal working relationships at Sorare. It was kind of the first project in about, I think, a 12-month period where everyone was working together on one big project, from devs, designers, product managers, kind of my line of work as well. And a lot of these hires might have been new, and just that whole collaboration did a lot for all of us in terms of learning who was strong at what the skills were, and kind of a really strong alignment towards working towards a common goal. And I think that's something that we had lost previously. And since then, the Global Cup ended in December, and then since January, there's been notable improvements in how we kind of work and ship things. We can still do a lot better, but I think there's a consistent progress there. And then for me, that was the big value.
In terms of like bringing in new people, we talked about the Kickoff, like the new Kickoff version of the game. Do you see that as like the way that people will join Sorare, like to play that game as opposed to like the amateur competitions, which like have been the previous kind of entry into Sorare?
So it will be one of the ways. Just quickly to say on Kickoff, that name was changed. Initially, internally, we were calling it Daily Game, but I didn't want to announce a product roadmap and have people referring to this as Daily Game because I don't find that naming particularly exciting. Kickoff, I think, is something that could work really, really well, but it's still kind of a placeholder. But yeah, so it is a way in which we believe we can introduce potential users to the core fantasy concepts without having to dig deeper into the kind of more layered, if you want, complex classic mode or career mode or ultimate mode. We're still looking at a naming for that as well. So it also allows us to test different types of growth campaigns, because we can push people straight into this kind of quick game mode experience rather than having to try and onboard them into something that has like a lot more stuff to kind of digest and understand. So yeah, I do really think it will help with conversion user growth, but that's not the only goal of those game modes. It's also, I think a lot of, except for daily fantasy, but like a lot of kind of more traditional fantasy loops are quite confined to their game week by game week experience. And it's same with a lot of like football simulation games where a user may log in on, sign up for the first time on Tuesday, but they actually don't have anything to do until the Friday. And we have all this amazing IP. We have pretty global coverage, which means that we have opportunities that core fantasy loops don't have, in which a potential user could sign up on a Wednesday and immediately they have 5 or 6 games to play and learn about our score matrix, which is, in my opinion, one of our unique selling points. And yeah, so I think that's where it will really help us to move the needle. But we're also working a lot on kind of connecting. It's a game mode, so we do want this game mode to be engaging to the more core users who are, right now staring at XP graphs and trying to work out how to play the next season. We want this game mode to be engaging for them too, so that there's like a loop between the two. It's not, we don't see it as something that's separate.
And
Okay.
imagine if they come to the classic game and see they can't play Champion America because they don't know anything about Champion America's news 36 hours before the game. I mean, to me, that's the big problem with the daily game, and I know I'm very excited to test it and see what will be going on. But I think like the bridge that is going to be very difficult to make is like the instantaneity of like playing on one game, like 30 minutes before the game, and the difference between the classic game, which is like, you submit your lineups at 4 p.m. on the Friday or at 12 p.m. on the Friday, and having to wait that much time. So it's a good bridge to have like that instantaneous game. But also I think it's kind of like, and you know where I'm going with that, is like the dynamic deadlines are, I think, something that should be worked towards. But yeah, I mean, I think that one of the most frustrating things for even like Sorare players that are like current Sorare players is that when your game week is done, it's done. You can't do anything about it, and that's why this game mode is going to be very exciting for not only like new users but also existing ones. Going further on that, but like another subject, but I think a lot of people are speculating on a lot of stuff on Sorare, and some stuff that people are speculating on is why people are like leaving the game, or why people are not like, well, why is there user churn? Is there user churn? But like, can you give us like, for example, the 3 big reasons why there is user churn on Sorare right now?
So without going into big detail on this, I want to like list 3 key reasons, but an answer that should hopefully answer this question is that the churn we're most concerned is maybe a strong one, but the churn that we want to fix or improve is the churn that we see from users who onboard and lose interest, or users who play a couple of days and lose interest. For users that actually have been onboarded, say by a friend or through a referral, or take a bit of time to watch, some of our community creators' videos, get to know the community. The retention engagement rates for that are really, really high, and it's less of a concern. Obviously, our concern is always to maintain certain standards of community trust and sentiment, but the churn we're seeing there isn't concerning at all. So the key, if you want, then the key churn reasons are things that happen in the first part of a user experience. And for me, that's largely down to we have a certain gameplay that can be explained simply, but we don't do it in a simple way. It's, even if you look at our score matrix and how we explain that, it's not straightforward. And then on top of that, in terms of our onboarding and how we kind of explain what is the key value proposition for Sorare, if you ask 5 people, they'll all say 5 different things. There's not like there's like one unanimous story, and that comes a kind of a front end funnel, brand building, also honing and polishing our kind of landing pages and storytelling, so that everyone's kind of telling the same story about Sorare. So yeah, in terms of churn, the main issue is that we're doing a bad job at educating users at the top end of the funnel.
But it's not that simple. I mean, I stopped, when I meet new people, I stopped saying what Sorare was and what SorareData is, because I'm like, it's too difficult to explain. Simply, do you know fantasy sports? In Europe, most people, or at least in France, they don't know what fantasy sport is. NFTs, stuff like that. You're like, so yeah, give me a one-liner then, and I'll share it with the world. But right now, I'm just saying I'm doing sports stats, and that's it.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think it's the same with elevator pitches as well. I'm sure there's thousands of people who have amazing ideas, but they can't boil it down to an elevator pitch. And if you can't do that, then you won't get investment. To use like a business context, not a gaming concept. But it's the same with Sorare. I think we can do a much better job there, and will improve. Something that we have seen is like the strength and power of our community. So all the growth that we've seen and engagement that we've seen, that's been through word of mouth. And we do believe that the kickoff mode will be something new for our existing community to tell their friends about. Because you could just be at I like to use this analogy a lot, but Maxime, you and I could be at a game together, and now we can just have a head-to-head, and it's a bit of crack, and there might be a few people at the table with us, and they're like, oh, what's this game? And anyway, I think there's a lot of potential.
No, but that's obviously, that's a great idea, obviously. I mean, in terms of gameplay, something that is a very popular subject. Like, have there been any discussions about like increasing E3 rewards or introducing them into other competitions? We've seen that with like All Star recently, like with the addition of paid ranks in ETH. But are there any plans regarding that?
So there's with similar to the announcements that we made last last week. Any changes to thresholds or even ETH kind of payout structure will always give, as much notice as possible. So that's like 2 to 3 months. So to keep the answer short, there will be no changes heading into the European season ahead of what we touched on last week. And if we do make changes, we'll give plenty of notice. But right now, we're quite happy with the balance, and we're just looking to maintain it.
I want to move over or back to the amateur competitions because we talked, not we. I was talking to a few people about how a lot of people are sharing like FPL teams now because the FPL game week 1 is open, and it doesn't seem like there are any plans for like a season-long competition in Sorare, which I personally think is fine because it's not really a season-long type of game. But is there an idea of like when the big 5 European amateur leagues are going to open, and so to allow people to kind of share their teams? I know that I think it was in Nellis's pod last week, but he was saying that like for FPL, we do see people like sharing teams now, but there really isn't like mass interest until like days, if not like the day before the season starts. So I think if the amateur leagues were open now, I think we'd see sporadic people sharing their teams and whatnot. But I don't know if there's like a huge need for it right away. But do we know, like, because usually with new season cards, they come up after the season starts, and so like, are we waiting for that, or like, do you guys have an idea of when those are going to open?
I think the goal is to have them open before, so like 1 game week ahead of the first game week, opening with the domestic league fixture. For example, the Premier League it'll open a week beforehand. But now that you said it, maybe there is an opportunity to open it a little earlier and get a bit more engagement and buzz ahead of it. We'll see. I'll speak with the team, but that's the goal for now. And then also, there's no plans for doing season-long formats for the reasons that you kind of stated, Andrew. I think right now we're looking to just test the month-long competition and see what that does to kind of strategies and where people focus. But we do eventually want to build features that reward people for thinking across the season. And I think that could start with more vanity metrics like, manager stats, history, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that kind of answers everything you said, I think.
I think so, yeah. But on the amateur subject, and I think somebody brought it up in chat here, will the fitness bonuses apply to the amateur games as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I can answer that afterwards as well. Let me ping the lads.
Because obviously, like, collection bonuses aren't going to apply because you're not actually collecting those cards, but fitness theoretically could, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess it depends how they see it as well in terms of using that as an opportunity to educate people at that stage. But I've just pinged them there.
Okay.
Maybe they'll answer back. Hopefully they're watching. They should be.
Yeah, really.
Guys. Help me out here.
The other one that a few people have brought up in the chat, and it has to do with the current season bonus and now like the new idea to have it expire when the new season begins. And I think a lot of people have ideas because I don't think they necessarily like that. I think it is better, meaning they don't like that it expires ever, really. But I think it helps that we now know when they expire, because I think the uncertainty, because we don't know like when the new season cards are going to launch. And so you're kind of just at the mercy of waiting. But there's a popular idea from Nepenthes that lots of people are piling onto, that you can make basically a 365-day XP bonus so that cards bought July 25th, for example, don't lose it. Like if you buy a card now, and I know that the new changes don't go into September, but theoretically next July, if you buy a card in July, you'll never be able to use that new season bonus because it'll expire on the first game week. So is there any way that we can just change that?
So I saw that idea, and it's one that we discussed as well. Initially, we opted not to do that. Well, there's a number of reasons. One of them is it's a bit complicated. We weren't sure how we could display it in an easy way to understand in the product. Like, on the marketplace, what you see a countdown or something like that. And then how do users track when their bonuses are expiring? I don't know. I think the gut was that it's maybe a little bit complicated. And then in terms of how it compares to our current season bonus, I think with introducing the likes of fitness collection being fairly new, and then also the XP formula being reworked a little bit, we felt maybe it was just a bit too many changes at the same time, in a time when we're trying to maintain certain types of gameplay balance. So that's what I remember from the conversation. But again, what I'll do is, for a lot of these ones where it's a little more detailed stuff on why we made certain decisions on XP, I'm not the best person to speak with, so I'll chat with the team who work on those things, and I'll follow up with like a thread on some of the stuff that I couldn't answer in detail on Twitter or something.
Yeah, because to follow up on that, seems like pretty counterintuitive for Sorare to not do that, because it feels like if you buy cards from the primary market at the end of the season, you will pay less for a card than what you would pay if it had like the full 365 days bonus, right? So it kind of feels like you guys are missing out on money on that. So, and I mean, I think like it's you probably would buy like a previous season card that has more XP like towards like the mid end of the season instead of like a brand new card, especially with like the XP changes and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean to me, like in terms of like your guys' perspective, it's just more money.
I'll wait for
It didn't like need an answer from you, but I mean that's just like the perspective on that. Dan, how many like what's the time left on your side? Like, do we have like 5 more minutes or?
I'm okay if people are still interested. I just got a message from one of the guys at work. No plans to add fitness to amateur.
Okay.
That's for like a question, I think 2 questions ago.
Yeah.
They must be a bit behind on the stream.
But like and I'm asking them again. So not an amateur, but if we play commons in cap to 20 limited, for example, is there a fitness bonus? Because if there's not, it's like an incentive not to play common cards in cap to 20 limited.
Right, because you won't get the
asking the tough question. That's me.
Is this where I ask Dan what his favorite ice cream flavor is? Because I'm easy.
Sorry, Dan.
No, I was asking Laird if there's a way to mute you.
You did just say that.
I'm asking.
You did just say that you were not the XP expert, but I have an XP question that I have to ask anyway. And I actually have a fitness question. But anyway, the XP, because part of the announcement was that you're changing the XP levels or the XP required for certain levels. And one of the questions that we got pretty early on was basically, are the levels of your cards staying the same? Is the XP staying the same? And so some cards will actually lose an XP percentage based on the new, I don't want to call it a threshold, but basically each percentage bonus threshold. Like, should people expect to see some of their cards move up and down?
Yeah. So that they will change slightly when we launch the entire kind of card bonus remodel, kind of mid to late September. And I think that the plan is in August to just share a little more details on that entire rework. So that includes the how fitness will work in more detail, but we'll also give examples. We'll explain the new XP formula in a little more detail beyond what we've added in the Help Center article, where we'll explain in what cases you'll see a percentage change.
And I'll just pretend this is the same bonus question, but a few people have asked if fitness bonuses will stay or be adjusted when a card is transferred. So like if I have a card where the fitness is 5%, will the new manager get 5% or does it revert back to 10?
No, it won't revert back because that'll be gamed.
But by who? What? No way. Who does that?
No one on this stream.
Yeah. Or anybody watching, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what
course.
I mean. I meant everyone that's participating.
Thank you to everybody who's here as well. So
you're all great. The questions though. Can I see the feed of questions? Oh, I'd have to have the new stream open. Okay, it's probably best I don't get distracted.
You can click on chat. Button. Yeah, top right.
Okay. I feel for Dan, but this whole stream has given me less confidence.
That's the one you
that was announced.
Out, huh?
Don't feel for me. I'm extremely confident. I'm sorry that doesn't translate. It's maybe my Irish demeanor. Okay, yeah, there's way too many here to read. I'll just leave it to you.
It's quite a lot, yeah. If you thought you were behind on Discord, oh man. So one of the other questions that we had was about auctions or auction rates, really. And I know that you actually had replied to somebody on Twitter about it, but it looked like that there were some things going on where like certain players were being auctioned a lot, whereas like some of their teammates were not. And if you could explain that, because I don't think everybody was able to see that tweet.
Yeah, that one was just like a new feature we were testing where the amount of supply we mint for a player card would remain the same or consistent across the week. But we were just testing how we could change when we drop certain cards on the market in terms with kind of the timing, how much demand there is on that market at that time. So it's kind of like tweaking timing with when we see higher levels of market activity and engagement, and then dropping auction frequencies when we typically see lower. So the idea was just to make it, there's still that consistency of how many cards we mint, but it's just a bit more dynamic and meets activity trends a little more closely. So that was the test. And that's why I saw there's like a lot of people concerned that we were, messing around loads with auction rates, but nothing changed across the week.
Okay. Totally unrelated to that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I was just saying that. And in general, that's something like our historically our kind of the way that we've auctioned cards. I'm probably sounding a bit harsh here, but it's been a little bit primitive in terms of the amount of tools we have. So something that's like a lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes that our community doesn't see as much of is just improving the tools we have to, flag cards that are missing, monitoring when we maybe undermint a card, overmint, that kind of stuff, and also ensuring that we meet market activity for certain players, clubs, all that kind of stuff.
I do think on that subject that there are people who, I think there are instances where like a player has a good game, and then all of a sudden like there are a few auctions of that player and people notice that stuff right away. and ignore that when players have good games, there's more interest on those players. And so like selling more cards makes sense in that time. Like, I don't think that's, I think that's like feedback that people give that they don't actually think of themselves before they complain about it. But anyway.
Yeah, I saw, sorry, just to say, I saw Mike say, please do not do anything else dynamic, as have proved cannot do it with rewards. There we go. Yeah, like there's no correlation or connection between the two. Like the idea, in the case of, you know, we're always bound and we'll always stick to our commitments to scarcity supply and everything like that. And we want certain levels of market stability. So when I say dynamic, we're still keeping consistencies and commitments across the week. It's just really changes within a 24-hour period, just to manage that panic a little bit. Not saying you're panicking, Mike, but
I think this will be the last question about fitness, but it probably won't be, even though we only have a few minutes. But basically, we went from the old training system, which was as many lineups as you could possibly make. Everybody gets whatever you get from training, to no training, to 3 training, to you can buy more academy lineups. And now we have whatever this Physio thing will become. 2-part question. Basically, 1, is the academy staying? And 2, is the new Physio plan any different than unlimited training lineups that we had a year
ago? So academy is staying. And then the Physio Center, it will not be as painful experience as the old training feature was. You know, so the idea isn't, you know, thousands of clicks to submit all your players. We'll make sure that we don't, you know, that the new experience will be a lot more smooth sailing and kind of less time consuming. And the decision making will be different as well. We're testing areas in which it's less about lineups, but it could be more about types of players that you want to put in the facilities that kind of cater to your strategy. So I kind of gave an example in the roadmap, but, you know, could be under 23s, but it could also be specific to certain leagues and stuff like that. And then how you input those players then will be kind of through filters or something like that. That's the idea.
This just popped into my head, but I think somebody brought it up at some point. Will players in the Physio room, is there a better name for that, or am I just going to keep calling it that?
Well, it's the Physio Center, but maybe you start off with a Physio room. Maybe you start with a Physio bench or something like that.
Can players in the Physio Center be listed on the market?
Oh, I don't know that one either. I'll ask that one too.
Got one.
List of Physio or play.
List of Physio or play,
They can.
Ooh,
they can. I just got the answer.
There we go. Yeah. I like list or heal. I like that one.
and then I got the other one. Common cards don't have fitness in 220 in the same way that collection bonus is also not available. So yeah, it won't be there either.
Okay.
That's to Maxime's previous question.
Yeah. Noted.
I have one last question, Maxime. Do you have anyone before?
No. I think Dan has participated way more than he actually committed. So thanks a lot, Dan, for your time.
Don't thank him yet. I have one more question that he's not going to be able to.
Yeah, you can keep them coming. I'm reading some of the comments here. We should get someone who works at Sorare in here next time. Agree.
This is turning into mean tweets.
Okay.
When will we have a cash wallet update?
That'll be this week. So really, really soon. And then in the update, that'll break down our whole kind of schedule plan. Yeah.
So do we just
I don't want to take
back on Tuesday?
Well, I don't want to take the limelight away from that update itself. but like, yeah, it'll be coming really soon. Yeah, and then I think before we sign off as well, I just wanted to say, like, I can, thanks for having me on this stream. I know that kind of long blog formats aren't the ideal way to announce certain things, and also announcing, updates without full context and kind of the larger details is far from ideal. Obviously, we want to work towards a place where we can announce things, even though I really do like announcing things with the supportive community and working with them. I think it's a cool way of doing it. But ultimately, it would be nice if we also had our own kind of fireside chats where we hosted the community. And obviously, we also want to get to a place where we can announce stuff like fitness, where all the details are immediate. But I think we've made huge amounts of improvements in terms of how we communicate and announce things. And eventually we'll get to a place where we can, announce these things with all the details at the same time. So I'm sorry that I couldn't share a lot of the deeper ways in which fitness will work. What happened there?
Sorry. I don't know what happened, but that's really funny that happened at that time.
Did I bore you?
No. Go ahead. You were saying that the details, like you were talking about.
Oh yeah, so you missed the part.
Releasing like stuff without the full details, etc.
Yeah. So you missed the part where I did then share all the details.
Yeah, all of the details were just shared after Dan fell off there. Yeah.
No, but get clipped. But yeah, anyway, you understand what I'm trying to say. I think also, my role in the company, it's within community and product marketing side of stuff. So I don't have all the details maybe that certain members of the core users want or would like. So I think maybe for a future stream we could try seeing a way in which I can go on with someone else who has actually helped build the feature, and they can answer things in more detail.
Yeah, sure. We're always very interested in like bringing you guys aboard. And if you want to organize your own fireside chats, I mean, I can loan you Andrew for like a very reasonable price. So like, don't hesitate.
Thanks. You can pay me in super
rate.
No, but Dan, thanks a lot for your time and for your participation. It's not an easy task to do. I mean, people, as you said, like people expect like someone from Sorare to know everything about the product, everything about the new rules and announcements that you guys didn't already do. And it's not an easy exercise, but thanks a lot for like taking the time and like taking like an hour of your time to speak with the community. We hope to do that. Like I told you, like off stream, like I don't know, last week. I think that would be cool to have Nicolas again, like in September, probably on the French stream, because that's something that people enjoy, and I think that like having like let's say every 6 months, like the boss around would be very interesting. So yeah, again, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your work, and please come back anytime you want.
For sure.
Okay. Thanks for having me, lads. And take care. Bye.
Cheers, Dan.
So, what do you really think?
He's not watching. You can't.
He's not watching anymore.
I mean, it's so difficult. Like he was community lead. He's moving towards like a more like marketing side of the product now. It's and people are so engaged in this game, are so passionate about the game that they expect a Sorare employee to know everything and to be able to disclose everything they want. But obviously I think it's very important what he said at the end. It's like I to be honest, I don't really like being announced something like an announcement of announcements. I don't like that, and you can see the impact this has on some players and on the community overall. It's like speculating on what fitness is going to look like, and some people making decisions about that even without knowing what it's going to look like. And to me, it's just, I understand the ambition to have like community feedback, but it's not qualified feedback because they don't even know what it is. So it's, to me, it's kind of like counterproductive to talk about those things when you don't release the full details. And I think that also they're still learning about, like, they made improvements on the communication and how to release new stuff. I think like centralizing all the updates near September, etc., like have a seasonal update and then probably just a few updates along the season is a good way to do that. But just, I think like next time you do that, just release all the details that you can, or if you can't release the details, just don't say anything.
Yeah, I don't actually mind the announcements because it at least prepares us to know that something is coming. But it's when the announcement includes, hey, we're going to do this brand new thing, we'll tell you more later. And that the speculation from the community ends up being as bad as it gets. Like, people will inevitably, someone will think of the absolute worst outcome, and then someone else hears it and they're like, oh, that could be really bad. And then it's like, hey, did you hear what they're doing? And then it just spirals. And that's when it gets a little tricky. Like this, like they announced the fitness thing and all people talk about is how much they hate it. And we have no idea what it is. We don't know how much it depreciates, how much it appreciates. We don't know how you get it back. We have no idea how much it costs to,
exactly.
These microtransactions. Is it 1 cent? Is it $1? Is it 20 pounds? Like, we have no idea. But because of the kind of partial announcement, eventually we get to the worst possible outcome, and that's what everyone thinks is going to happen.
Yeah, and I think like you should just take a break and like wait until you see the final details, because I think like you have to like think about what Sorare is thinking about right now. Like, they're trying to balance their game. They're not trying to make everyone leave the game. So like leaving the game based on a speculation, or like trying to sell your cards based on a simple speculation like this, to me does not make sense. I mean, there's a world where those people's like trying to sell their cards or trying to take the decisions based on what we know today. There's a world where those people are right to do that today, but it's just like just throw a coin and that's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, I think that like what's really interesting with those discussions is, maybe for future discussions, is probably not high level discussion, but like, edge case discussions, like a focus on a particular feature, because I think that overall they cannot disclose like more things that they actually disclose in their announcements. You can ask for maybe like how they thought about it, and I think that's very interesting, like to understand how they think about features before releasing it, like what's the global objective of features, etc. But if you want to ask something else, you're going to have like a very, like, I would do exactly the same thing. I would say like, oh, we cannot share the details yet, and we cannot say that yet. And that can be frustrating also for people that really want answer, but they simply can't give them to us. So I think like focusing, like for example, like the amateur thing was very interesting for people playing amateur, but like the cap to 20 comments that are like obviously now being less effective because you will not have that fitness bonus. It's like 10%. It's significant. So yeah, I guess like, yeah, let's focus maybe next times on like a specific feature, and not like and leave to Nicola the big updates and the big like vision updates.
The Josh here was saying the collection bonus has a 90-day counter that actively affects the XP, but a 365-day countdown for freshly minted bonus is too complicated, which I don't know if it was necessarily too complicated just in terms of building it, but It's an interesting point there that like they basically have a countdown already that affects XP.
Yes, but I get his point though. But to me, it's like it's a no-brainer. From their perspective, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. People are happy. We get more money. I don't really see what's the problem here. But yeah, I think like if it's a matter of like simplifying the display of the information, I think that you just get your people on it and they'll come up with the solution, right?
Right. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting that as much as like we want to say, and I feel like I've always said this, the elevator pitch idea when someone was like, well, what's so rare? And I've always said like it's a fantasy football game with like that you buy player cards with. And fundamentally that was really easy. And it sounds like maybe that's not what they want anymore. That like obviously fantasy is at the core of it, but they've always talked about themselves as like this revolutionary new way, and nothing's been done like this. And it does feel like they are gamifying it in order to like make it different, even more different than fantasy games, which I think, to be honest, we'll all just be perfectly fine with it and we'll have fun with it. But it is like the first time where I feel like they've spoken about not just being like a pure fantasy football game.
Yeah, but kind of the pitch, like the first year's pitch was like, we are a Web3 game, a fantasy NFT fantasy sports game, and we're going to revolutionize the space. And I think that like for the past years, like nothing has been done in terms of like how can you gamify Sorare, and so we kind of lost track of like the gamifying aspect of it. And so that's why we're so surprised of having those updates, because a fitness bonus makes total sense in terms of like if you want to gamify stuff. It's like making more decisions. Do I bench this guy? You play Football Manager, you have to do those exact same decisions, right? Like, do I want to play this guy because I know that he's not in a good shape physically, but I need him. So do I risk it or not? So I guess that makes total sense. But I think people were used to like basic, almost DFS, and like I want to get my return on investment, and anything that is done to like disturb that potential ROI, I don't like it.
Right.
And I mean, if they really want to become a game, they have to do that. I mean, they have to have that transition and introduce more gaming aspects to the game, and it won't be like done in a month or in 6 months. Is going to take years. But if you're not willing to accept that Sorare is going to be a real game at some point, I think, yeah, it's probably not the right product for you to be engaged in.
Yeah, I think this is basically the first step of it becoming much more of a game than a fantasy product. And I think fantasy will always be a big part of it. Like obviously what the players do in real life feeds what happens. Like if this isn't FIFA where you decide where everyone goes, and it's not Football Manager where like basically something else decides how the players perform. Like ultimately it's about how the players perform, but there is a big gaming part on top of it, meaning gameplay as opposed to gambling. But like,
yeah,
they clearly are trying to do both.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that if you introduce like the fitness bonus day one, like people wouldn't mind the fitness bonus, right? It's just like a matter of transitioning from like the game we know today to something else. And people might say, don't change, if it's not broken, don't change it. And I would agree with that. But I think it's broken in the sense that like they need more money. Like they need to make sure that people are not playing on their house like once they bought like 20 cards, for example. They could. I think there's a valid case that you could be playing with 20 cards bought in 2019. But like they want to give incentives to people to actually buy more cards and new cards so that Sorare can be sustainable as also a company.
I agree on this one. This comment by Kernico. In the end, fitness isn't about player fitness, but card usage. So wrong naming, maybe. I think it's absolutely a branding problem. Like if they just called it anything else, could have made up a word and just explained what it is. We would all be like, okay, that's a little different, but I get it. But like fatigue and fitness, I don't know.
Are you sure? Really, I think that like most people are just freaking out about like competing with people with fitness bonus that are superior to yours, right? It's at the end of the day, it's what people freak out about. Like, I have to pay. You don't know what you're going to have to pay, right? Like, you don't know if it's going to be like €5 or 500 coins or 1,000. You don't know about that, right? But you're afraid that like people with more money and more coins will have significant advantage. And I guess that remains to be seen.
I do think I mentioned this somewhere, but at some point, the pushback that I saw about introducing the fitness bonus along with the collection bonus and regular XP and the new season is that it was just like too complicated for new people. And the way that I kind of responded to that was, it's complicated to us because we knew an easier way because that's how we've been playing. But I think at some point there's just going to be like, when you look at your card and that's like, this is the bonus that this card has. And you can hover over it and it's like, here's the breakdown. And I think the only time that people will care what the breakdown is how do I make one higher? Like, how do I make this card higher? And if the answer is click here to buy a fitness boost or click here to buy one of his teammates because that helps the collection score. Like, I think we know, because we all play this game now, like we know that how we play, and anything that's different, we're all like, whoa, I know this game and now you're making it harder. But like fundamentally, I think it's actually going to be simple. And it's just, your card has 20%. And if you want 21%, you give us $5. And we're like, okay, that makes sense. And some people will do it and some won't, or, spend 5,000 coins or whatever it is. And we'll just move on. Like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be nearly as like traumatic as other people think it is.
Yeah. But again, anything that complexifies like your like return on investment is something that people are freaked out about. And I get that, but like, I mean, you gotta accept the fact that it's not regular fantasy sports. Like, it's not
Right.
DFS, and like, you're going to play a game where you probably are going to be able to make some money out of it, but the thing that you're going to be able to is not to lose all your money playing it, which is something that doesn't happen in most games today, like in every game today, except CSGO.
Yeah. Somebody commented about how, here it is. The magic word is fun. In what world is this fitness gimmick fun? We don't know what it is. Like, it might actually be fun. Like, we just don't know.
No, but well, so I agree with Daniel. I don't think it's fun. I think it's complexifying the experience and like making you take more decisions and more impactful decisions. And so if you don't find decision making fun, then it's not fun. But if you enjoy like making strategic decision for your squad and stuff like that, and like enjoy the grind and not having to pay for, or like having to budget your coins like over a year to say, I need to like improve the fitness of this guy. You could like seriously do a lot of things, but if you don't enjoy that and you just want to click on stuff and that's it, then it's not fun.
I think the Physio Center, like, I think it's possible that it's fun. I'll put it that way. But the back-to-back cards, like, Daniel Cooper, not using my best card that I paid lots of money could be fun. Like, you can play the card. Nobody's telling you can't play the card. But then on the other side, Chris, I think it might be more tactical and thus more fun. And I get that, like, we all want the game to be simple, but I think some of the complexity of the game leads us to do things in the game that is fun. Like, we have fun scouting, like not going out and just buying the best players is you need to do that. And some people have fun with that and others don't. And like, there are already parts of this game that people think is a grind and they choose not to do it. And it's okay for them.
And I think like the fun part is going to come also from the Kickoff game. So I hate the naming, but they'll find something better. But like basically the daily game, like just play 5 cards that you own or that you do not own, and just like play against like some people that you know, people that you don't. And that's also a fun way to play, because you don't have to like engage in like, oh, what's the bonus of this card, or should I rest the card, etc. I think the classic game is more for like dedicated players that want to like spend a lot of time like thinking about stuff. And the Kickoff game and like the daily game, I don't know how you call that, but would be more for like players that are not like really like into thinking a lot about stuff and just want to play. They get in front of the TV, watch a game, and see what the result is at the end of the game.
Yeah, I think I think that's right.
And Andrew, we can say also, we're going to simplify a lot of stuff for you. So no worries about that. We're going to simplify your experience. So because when Sorare is complexifying stuff, we make sure that we are simplifying it for you. But then people will complain, oh, but SorareData is taking all the decisions for people and they're not even thinking about the game anymore. That's not fun. I mean, what do you want to do now?
Yeah. I'm going to highlight the comments that agree with me and ignore the ones that disagree, but I'm just kidding, sort of. But Josh said, I do find the conclusion that a player has to be 10% weird, that it has to be a 10% weird. Like if you have a 7% XP and someone else has 8%, you barely think about it, but 9% fitness to 10% fitness is unthinkable. And that's kind of the where I go with it. And I think it was Hoodwink. Here we go. People saying they won't play a card with low fitness surely don't leave out their best players until they have high XP and just use higher XP cards. Like that's how I think of it, that we're not going to think of it. We're just going to be like, oh, this card is 23%.
No, but
great.
But I think that so you don't really care for rare and super rare cards. I don't think you care. But I think it's not a matter of like, do you play your players? It's a matter of like, will I be against players that will get an advantage based on the fact that they paid more? I think it comes down to this. And I think that's what not really, no. Because like if you're
I'm going in
somehow gets a decisive and a great yes, please, Sorare, tell me how to spend my 600 coins. Yeah, we will tell you that. But no, what I meant is that if you get 100 with like a player that never gets 100, it's going to be the same 100 than Messi, right? But since you own that player because you spent a lot of time researching and low budgeting and stuff like that, you don't have like the coins or the money to buy the fitness. So the guy who has Messi is probably going to have a 10% Messi, so he's going to cost 110, and you're probably going to score 106 or 105 because you've used that card a lot. And I think that's where the fairness issue is. And I kind of agree with that. I think that when you touch to like the scoring, especially when it matters so much that people that do a lot of scouting get like the great cards for the good, like for the right game week and stuff like that, and then somewhat penalized against someone that is just playing the great cards of the game week because they're good players. I understand the issue. I really do, and I'm kind of like, I'm with my pitchfork.
So I think the counter to that is it's already existing in the game where I will put a lineup in that has Juni Ito and someone else is playing Mbappe. And it's like, that's the difference. Like, I think it's less about if we're both playing Ito or both playing Mbappe and I'm like, oh, his is more. Like, I don't know anybody that really looks at other lineups XP. It's just like, you see the score, it's higher. And I think we're all reacting to this fitness thing as if everyone else on the entire platform has maxed out their cards and I have not. And I'm at a disadvantage. It's just not true.
I get what you say. And I guess that your point is valid for rare, super rare, and unique cards, but I don't think it's valid for limited cards where the competition is so stacked that, yes, fitness bonus will matter. And you don't have to look at leaderboards to actually understand that these situations will happen somehow, because they will. I mean, like, over a game week, you will see a lot of players scoring 100. You will see great players that you know, and you will see players that you don't. And you will have players, managers that will have scouted those players and played them at the right time. And I would feel for them to be like, to have like 100 that is less points than a player that just played Messi, for example. And I think that it's kind of like removing kind of the beauty of the game, that is, you play your player, and if you did your scouting well, you're going to win. And I understand that fitness bonus is kind of like suppressing this impression that if you scout well, you're going to win.
But I think you could make the argument that you have scouted well if you are playing you got your Mbappe to max fitness for the game week.
Exactly. So that's a valid point, but it's like, it's a lot of planning and a lot of potential, like, I don't know, time spent on it. So okay, so I would say it increases the time required to actually compete with like no-brainer lineups. That's something I would say, and I think that's valid.
Yeah, I think we're also overestimating the number of duplicate lineups. Like, I think that's other.
Yeah, there are no duplicate lineups whatsoever on the platform, like right now. But I think you can make a case that at some point in time there will be duplicate lineups, and also in certain game weeks there will be.
I've seen enough people who are like, look at my Liverpool stack, and I'm like, that's the 10th one I've seen that's exactly like that. Like, I think we'll see it more, but the number is just so small.
Yeah, no, I think it's but there is so much player diversity and so many players on the platform, and so many like players like scoring above 90 points, that it doesn't matter if there are duplicate lineups or not. It's just like there are going to be like football players that no one will have scouted, or unless one or two people on the platform, that are going to take more time to actually like compete with like the no-brainer lineups. And I mean, it's the way it is. But I would agree on that point. I would not go further than that point. It's going to require more time than it actually does today to actually compete against like no-brainer lineups. You can frame it, you can like display it near the FC Nantes logo on your in your background. It's I'm pretty sure about that.
That's why you should have a SorareData membership.
No, I mean that's for us. It's pretty. No, it's pretty fun. From our perspective, it's pretty fun because that will enable us to actually like bring a lot more tools, and that's why we hired more people to actually build them. And so yeah, that's pretty interesting for us. But like, if you want to do it like solo or without spending money, I mean that's rough.
What do you think of this idea? Oh man, I think I lost it. Oh, here it is. What if they reversed fitness and you get 1% and it grows the less you use the card, as opposed to?
Yeah, so that's a pretty good idea. I think you should start at 5% actually, and like it should be like maybe like, oh, I'm just throwing that here, but it should be like a balance of how much games played, how many games played, and how many rested, right? And you should have a balance that is like you get to 10%, but that's even more complicated, right? But I feel like it's a valid point. I think that if you like coming from 10% and going down feels a bit like I'm just going to buy more cards, right? And I'm just going to get an advantage by reloading that card, like fitnessing the card by, I don't know, or buy new cards.
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea.
Why do you want to reward people for not using their cards? Like it's not that you're not using them, it's that you're making a strategic decision for the future.
And that's a valid question though, but I would say that you're making people buy more cards because you have to find replacements for the cards you're sitting, like you're benching because you want to arrest them. So I mean, that's pretty like that's a pretty easy answer from Sorare's perspective to me. You can't play that card? Yeah, buy another one then. Or you don't want to buy another card? Then buy the recover pack, and it's pretty. Well, it's pretty cheap. It's only $10.
Yeah,
and you could win. You could win $50.
I still think most people are not overestimating, over worrying about the total, like the fitness bonus. Like I really, you're gonna play your cards anyway. Like you really are.
Do you think like would the message be well heard or differently heard if they would say, we want to make more money, so we are doing that? No, but I'm serious. Because let's be honest here. I think that's the whole point, and I mean that makes sense. I think like if you look at their revenue this year, it's not like it's way different from last year, and they have to find out how to make sure that people don't play on the house every week. Like PSU fans, myself, we're playing like for free right now, and we spent tons at the beginning, right? But today we are not Sorare customers. We're getting back money because we win the rewards, right? And so how do you make sure that those people like pay you? And I've seen some great ideas, like other products are in our games. I mean, like I feel like season passes are something that should be explored, because season passes are a way to like making sure you get some additional rewards during the season, and make sure that people have to pay for that season pass every year, every season. That wouldn't be like necessary to play the game, but at least like have it to have some certain like to make sure that you're going to buy more cards, for example. And yeah, again, like microtransactions, I think that makes sense. But like you have to like target the cards, the cards bonus to start with microtransaction? I would have like, probably my guess would have been like, do you want to customize a card? Then pay for it. And I think that it's I would definitely pay for some like custom editions of my cards, because I'm a client, and I think that makes a lot more sense, and you're not like touching your game loop. But I mean, I think that fitness also makes a lot of sense, and you're probably going to make more money with fitness. I don't know. I think like you look at what League of Legends, CS:GO are doing. They're not touching, like you're not paying to get an advantage in a game. You're paying to get a gun that says, "Oh, you killed 10 people with that gun," and you're like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing." I mean, I'm paying $50 for that. And so I think that people like would definitely pay for customizing their cards.
It did, like Dan mentioned, that the possible like next step in these microtransactions were like cosmetic things to your club, I feel like that would have been the right place to start instead of pay to get more points in this game. But it does seem like at least that's going to end up being part of it.
And also, Andrew, dedicated tournaments. I think that you should have tournaments that are like over like a month or more, and you should like own like a specific set of cards or own a season pass or something like that. And I don't know, just do a Sorare World Championship that is like at the end of the season, that is like based on your performances throughout the season. You have to enter World Cup qualifiers and stuff like that to actually. We missed this kind of like exciting tournaments that you also like encourage people to actually like. You can't enter a World Cup qualifier if you don't have like, if you don't submit like a 2023 line cards lineup, for example. You could do that. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they could have. I mean, maybe that's the plan for these like longer, like the monthly competitions, and then they have one more, one at the end of the season. That's like the championship one. The world champion Sorare player.
Yeah, I mean, and we're seeing like other NFT games or other games that when you move to a new season, and it's very difficult with Sorare because Sorare is like in the middle ground of like collectibles and fantasy sports. But like in other games, you would like your previous year cards are pretty much worthless. Like you have to trade them or you have to convert them into like crafting recipes and stuff like that, which makes ton of sense to me. Like I would definitely want to have like crafting recipes on Sorare. But like it's I mean, they can't do that anymore because the pitchforks would be like, I mean, there would be millions of pitchforks like in front of Sorare's offices because you made decisions at the beginning of your game saying like the NFTs that you buy now are going to be valid for the entirety of your Sorare career, and you're going to be able to play them in the main game loop for the entirety of your career. And that has big implications today because now they're trying to figure out how we can make sure that we're we're giving
incentivized.
Yeah, well, you get the word. People to actually buy more cards and buy like new season cards.
How much do you think the non-SO5 parts of the game, how popular they'll become? Like people building stadiums and buying cards to display in their stadiums and whatnot. Like, do you think that's a reasonable path for users?
I was surprised how many people actually collected custom series cards. So I would say that there's like definitely people are interested in like building a legacy, building a club, and having to like, it's also like having the ability to show your friends what a great like legacy or great like football club you've built. So it's like, I think they have to do that, and that's also why they named fitness. It's because it makes sense in the football world, and I think they're just going to do that, like introducing stuff to make you pay more money or diversifying revenue, and make it seem like it's normal in the football world, which to me makes sense.
David said, we want fantasy football. I left Football Manager to play Sorare for a reason. I don't, this is not Football Manager with NFTs though. Like it's still very reliant on what happens in real life on the pitch.
And I don't think that you would, well, I think that if you have limited time, you cannot play Football Manager seriously and Sorare at the same time. But I think there are two separate games, and probably playing Football Manager is helping you to play Sorare and the other way around. So I don't think that you would compare those two. But yeah, Sorare is so far away from the complexity and from like all the gaming aspects that have been introduced in Football Manager. And you don't see, when you play Football Manager, you don't really see the gaming aspects, because you're like, oh, but it's a football club, it's a simulation, so I'm not seeing anything. But I'm pretty sure that injury rates, like it all is gamified, and it's like it doesn't it happens for a reason, right? Like, or when you get an interview for a new job on Football Manager, it happens because of something. It does not like randomly happens as it does on Sorare, because you're not in control of how where Mbappe is going to play next season. Even if you own him, you're like, and you're waiting. So I mean, yeah, I think there's like ton of room for more gaming improvements on Sorare. So keep playing Football Manager. That's a great game also.
I don't think I've played Football Manager in literally 20 years.
It's the kind of game that you play like for a month and you dedicate your whole life to it, and then you're like,
Yeah, agreed.
And I've dedicated like 5 years of, is it 5 or 4 years of my life to Sorare now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
How's that feeling?
Can't you see? I mean, it's my eyes are so small. It's like, I don't know. I need vacations, Andrew. I need like a break.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know, but what I'm doing right now, I cannot say what I'm doing right now, but it's pretty fun and so enjoyable. So I kind of like go back to what I particularly enjoy. But what we can say to the people that stayed until the end of the stream is that we're going to have big announcements in September, at the beginning of the month of September. Not sure about the exact timing yet, but yeah, lots of things to announce.
It will be big.
Yeah, not necessarily good for you guys, but I mean,
but really, it'll end up being just fine.
Well, it's going to be huge. It's going to be
great.
legendary.
What? Yeah, we'll just end on that announcement of an announcement. Actually,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't
everybody in
announce
chat
anything. I didn't say like it's going to be this and you're going to get the details. I'm just saying we're going to make announcements.
No. Today we do the announcement, and then sometime in August we'll like just give everyone what they are, but we won't actually tell anyone, no details. And then in September we'll just launch it, and you guys won't even know.
And you can't do anything about it.
No. I will say, I don't want to give anything away, but we are not selling fitness packs.
Are we? I mean, well, we don't know. Maybe we could do that. Like, get a star subscription and you get like a full year of recovery packs. Oh, that would be amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Please like and subscribe. I feel like we will have Dan back at some point, because there's always questions to ask, and Dan's the one who has to answer them. So thank you to Dan. If he's watching, maybe he left, threw his computer out the window and left. But if not, Dan, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll be back next week with some more SorareData Office Hours. Thank you, everybody.